Designing your productivity system, structures and strategies for lasting change. Creating your blueprint. Designing an effective planning framework. Vision and goal setting. When I was managing the commissioning of a $70 million solar installation in Chile, one of my most talented engineers, a man with flawless technical credentials, submitted critical compliance documentation 3 weeks late. The delay cost us contractor penalties and regulatory scrutiny. When I asked him what happened, he said something that stayed with me. I kept waiting until I could see the whole thing clearly. He had confused planning with clairvoyance. Most productivity systems fail not because they lack sophistication, but because they demand a kind of certainty that doesn't exist at the starting line. We treat goal setting as if it requires complete visibility from intention to outcome, as though we're supposed to architect our lives with the precision of engineering blueprints. But effective planning isn't about seeing everything, it's about seeing enough to take the next credible step. The distinction matters more than most productivity literature acknowledges. A clear vision doesn't mean you've mapped every obstacle or anticipated every variable. It means you've identified a direction that pulls you forward with enough gravitational force to overcome the friction of daily resistance. Your goals aren't prophecies. They're commitments to a trajectory, not a destination you can see from here. When alignment between personal aspiration and productivity structure breaks down, procrastination doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like confusion. You're busy, sometimes frantically so, but the work doesn't seem to compound toward anything recognizable. This creates a particularly insidious form of delay. You're not avoiding tasks, you're completing the wrong ones with impressive efficiency. I watched this pattern destroy morale across entire project teams. People worked long hours, yet felt perpetually behind because their daily actions bore no clear relationship to their stated priorities. The planning framework you build must therefore serve a specific, often overlooked function. It must make purposeful action distinguishable from mere activity. Without this clarity, your brain defaults to whatever feels most urgent or least threatening, which is precisely how competent professionals end up drowning in email while career-defining work sits untouched. The system isn't there to control you. It's there to prevent your limbic system from controlling your calendar. Prioritization techniques. Prioritization is the act of determining which tasks deserve your finite attention based on their actual contribution to meaningful outcomes, not their emotional urgency or psychological comfort. Most people confuse this with simple task ranking, as though productivity were merely about ordering a list from top to bottom. But genuine prioritization requires distinguishing between two fundamentally different categories of demand. What screams for attention versus what actually matters. Dwight Eisenhower's matrix, dividing tasks into urgent versus important, remains useful because it exposes how rarely these qualities align. Covey, 1989. Urgent tasks trigger immediate psychological pressure. A ringing phone, a flagged email, a colleague standing in your doorway. Important tasks contribute to long-term objectives but often carry no inherent deadline, generating no limbic alarm. Your brain treats them as theoretically valuable but practically skippable, which is precisely why they accumulate into career-defining regrets. The hardest truth about prioritization: it requires saying no to things that feel productive. In my years leading large teams, I watched talented professionals drown in activity while their most critical projects languished. They weren't lazy. They were responsive, helpful, engaged. They answered every email within minutes, attended every meeting, solved every small fire. Their days felt full, even virtuous. But at year's end, when we reviewed strategic objectives, the gap between effort and impact was undeniable. They had optimized for feeling busy rather than achieving results. A functional prioritization system helps you navigate this tension by establishing clear decision criteria before the moment of choice arrives. When your calendar fills and your inbox overflows, you need predetermined principles that cut through the noise. Does this task advance a core objective? Will delaying it create genuine consequences? Am I the only person who can do this? Or am I simply the most convenient option? These questions transform prioritization from guesswork into strategy, allowing you to protect what truly matters from the relentless tide of what merely demands. Time management strategies. Effective prioritization collapses without the capacity to protect time for what you've deemed important. You can rank tasks perfectly, identify your highest leverage work, and still accomplish nothing if you cannot defend those hours against interruption. Time blocking transforms priority from abstraction into physical reality by assigning specific tasks to specific hours, creating boundaries that treat your most important work as non-negotiable appointments. Research on implementation intentions demonstrates why this matters. When you decide, "I'll work on the proposal sometime this week," you're relying on motivation and willpower to materialize at the right moment. But when you block Tuesday from 9 to 11:30 for proposal writing, you've eliminated the decision entirely. Your calendar becomes the decision maker, and your job is simply to honor the commitment you made when your prefrontal cortex was functioning optimally, not when you're tired and your limbic system is searching for easier options. Gollwitzer and Sheeran, 2006. The stakes here are higher than many realize. Without protected time, your days default to what's urgent rather than what's important. Colleagues assume your availability. Meetings expand to fill available space. Email becomes an all-day task. What gets sacrificed? The strategic thinking, the deep work, the projects that require sustained concentration but carry no immediate deadline. These are precisely the activities that separate high performers from people who simply stay busy. The consequences of neglecting protected time are evident in professional settings. Without dedicated periods for strategic thinking, teams often become reactive. Research, such as studies by Gloria Mark on information workers, consistently demonstrates that frequent interruptions lead to increased stress and a higher likelihood of errors in tasks. This reactive mode delays critical decisions, causes project budgets to bloat from insufficient proactive analysis, and results in timelines slipping as urgent tasks perpetually overshadow important strategic work. Time blocking isn't about rigidity, it's about intentionality. Your blocks should flex when genuine priorities shift, but the default should be protection, not availability. Start with your non-negotiables. The work that advances core objectives, the deep focus sessions that require uninterrupted thinking, the activities that build long-term capability rather than simply extinguish fires. Schedule these first, treating them with the same respect you'd give a client meeting or medical appointment. Environmental structures. Optimizing your space for success. Curating a productive environment. Your workspace isn't neutral territory. It actively shapes your ability to focus, your willingness to begin tasks, and your capacity to sustain momentum throughout the day. The physical environment you create either supports your best intentions or quietly undermines them, often in ways you don't consciously register until procrastination becomes the default response. Consider the cluttered desk piled with unfinished projects, unopened mail, and remnants of yesterday's work. Each item represents a decision deferred, a task incomplete. Your brain registers this chaos as cognitive noise, consuming mental energy before you've even started your actual work. Research in environmental psychology confirms what many intuitively understand. Physical disorder correlates with mental distraction, making it exponentially harder to initiate and complete meaningful tasks. This isn't about aesthetics or perfectionism. It's about removing the friction that makes procrastination feel easier than progress. Strategic workspace design begins with intentional decluttering. Remove everything that doesn't serve your current priorities. This doesn't mean sterile minimalism, but rather purposeful curation. Keep only the tools, materials, and visual cues that support your immediate goals. If you're writing, clear everything except your device and perhaps one reference book. If you're planning, keep your planner visible and accessible while filing away completed projects. The principle is simple. Your environment should reflect your priorities, not your distractions. Organization systems must match your actual behavior patterns, not idealized versions of how you think you should work. If you're someone who needs visual reminders, use open shelving or clear containers. If visual clutter overwhelms you, invest in closed storage that keeps necessary items accessible but hidden. The goal is reducing decision fatigue. When everything has a designated place, you spend less energy managing your space and more energy on substantive work. Personalization matters more than most productivity advice acknowledges. Your workspace should feel like yours, incorporating elements that genuinely motivate and ground you. This might mean a plant that requires daily attention, creating a ritual of care that transitions you into work mode, or photographs that remind you why your goals matter, or lighting that reduces eye strain and maintains alertness. These aren't frivolous additions. They're environmental anchors that make sustained productivity feel sustainable rather than punishing. The most overlooked aspect of environmental design? Dedicated zones for different types of work. If possible, create distinct areas for focused tasks versus administrative work versus creative thinking. Even small adjustments, turning your chair to face a different direction, moving to a different corner of the room, signal to your brain that you're shifting modes. This environmental cueing reduces the mental effort required to context switch and helps maintain the boundaries that prevent procrastination from seeping into focused work time. Your environment isn't just where you work. It's a tool for sustainable change, continuously reinforcing the habits and mindsets that move you past delay and into meaningful action. Harnessing environmental cues. A 2011 study involving researchers from Cornell University revealed something startling about hospital hand hygiene. Instead of lecturing staff about germs or posting motivational reminders, researchers placed lemon-scented hand sanitizers at strategic locations and tracked usage patterns. Compliance jumped 41%. The environmental cue, scent combined with strategic placement, bypassed conscious decision-making, triggering the desired behavior before deliberation could introduce resistance or delay. Jung, 2011. This principle applies directly to procrastination. Environmental cues function as external triggers that prompt productive actions without requiring willpower or motivation. When designed strategically, these cues interrupt avoidance patterns before they fully activate, creating what behavioral scientists call action scaffolding, external structures supporting desired behaviors until they become automatic. Visual cues work because they exploit the brain's natural tendency to respond to environmental stimuli. A notebook placed deliberately on your desk at eye level prompts writing. Running shoes positioned by the door reduce the friction between intention and action. The workspace cleared of distractions signals focus mode before you consciously decide to concentrate. These aren't mere organizational tricks. They're strategic interventions that reshape behavior by altering the landscape of choice. Auditory reminders serve a complementary function. A timer chiming every hour can prompt brief reflection. Am I working on what matters? A specific playlist associated with deep work creates mental boundaries, signaling transition into focused productivity. One client of mine programmed her phone to play a particular piece of classical music at 2 p.m. daily, the time she historically fell into her deepest procrastination pit. That musical cue became her signal to reset, step away briefly, and return with renewed intention. The key to effective environmental cues lies in consistency and alignment. Random reminders create noise. Strategic cues create patterns. Your visual and auditory environment should reflect your actual priorities, not aspirational fantasies disconnected from reality. If creative work matters most, your desk shouldn't display administrative clutter. If physical health drives your goals, workout gear shouldn't hide in closets. Each visible element should either support your objectives or be removed entirely. Building these systems requires initial effort but minimal ongoing willpower. Start small. Identify one recurring procrastination trigger and design a single environmental cue to counteract it. Test, observe, adjust. As these cues prove effective, expand the system gradually, allowing each new element to integrate fully before adding another. This approach honors the reality that sustainable change unfolds through dedication and time, not sudden transformation. Environmental design isn't about controlling every variable. It's about reducing unnecessary decisions and creating conditions where productive action becomes the path of least resistance. Accountability mechanisms, building supportive networks, choosing the right partners. Choosing an accountability partner isn't about finding someone who nods encouragingly. It's about identifying individuals whose presence fundamentally alters your follow-through. After managing diverse teams across international projects, I've witnessed how the wrong partnership breeds resentment, while the right one transforms ambitious plans into completed work. Shared objectives form the foundation, but not in the superficial sense of, we both want to be productive. During my experience working on high-stakes initiatives, I partnered with a colleague who shared my specific sprint deadlines and understood the critical impact of even minor delays on project milestones. We weren't just working on tasks. We were both navigating interdependent deliverables where missed timelines directly affected launch dates. That specificity mattered. When accountability partners share concrete, parallel goals rather than vague aspirations, the investment becomes real. You're not explaining context or justifying priorities. You're comparing progress against benchmarks you both understand. Mutual respect determines whether feedback lands as encouragement or criticism. The best accountability relationships I've built contained an unspoken agreement. We both understood that setbacks reveal information, not character flaws. When my partner questioned why I delayed a critical review, I didn't feel judged. I felt challenged to examine my reasoning. That distinction transforms everything. Constructive feedback requires the ability to ask difficult questions without destroying trust. Look for partners who demonstrate curiosity over judgment, who probe your reasoning rather than simply affirming your excuses. The person who asks, "What stopped you?" opens far more productive conversations than one who says, "You've got this," without examining the underlying resistance. Genuine support means presence during struggles, not just celebration of wins. Establishing clear expectations. During one particularly grueling project timeline at a renewable energy facility, my accountability partnership with a senior engineer nearly collapsed within the first month. Not from lack of commitment, but from vague expectations. We'd agreed to check in regularly and support each other's deadlines, language so imprecise it created confusion rather than clarity. When he missed our third meeting without explanation, I felt irritated but uncertain whether I had grounds to raise the issue. We'd never defined what regular meant. That ambiguity nearly destroyed what could have been a powerful alliance. We salvaged the partnership by documenting specific agreements. We established Tuesday morning check-ins at 7:30, non-negotiable unless communicated 24 hours in advance. We identified 3 milestone categories: weekly deliverables, monthly project gates, and quarterly strategic reviews. Each category had defined criteria for success and explicit consequences for missed commitments. Not punitive measures, but transparent adjustments to workload or timeline expectations. The transformation was immediate. What had felt like navigating fog became a clear roadmap we both trusted. This experience taught me that clarity precedes commitment. Your accountability partnerships require the same specificity you'd bring to a professional contract. Define precisely when you'll connect, how you'll communicate progress, and what constitutes meaningful support. Establish agreed-upon milestones that matter to both parties, ensuring they're challenging enough to inspire effort, but achievable enough to maintain momentum. Without these defined parameters, even the most well-intentioned partnership drifts into inconsistency, leaving both parties frustrated and disconnected from their goals. Leveraging technology for support. Technology should amplify accountability, not replace human connection. When selecting digital tools, prioritize platforms that reduce friction rather than adding complexity to your existing commitments. The best accountability technology becomes invisible infrastructure, present when needed, unobtrusive otherwise. Start with shared task management systems that provide mutual visibility into progress without constant manual updates. Tools like Asana, Trello, or Notion allow accountability partners to see real-time status changes, completed milestones, and emerging obstacles. Configure notifications strategically. Enable alerts only for genuinely significant events, approaching deadlines, completed deliverables, or direct questions requiring response. Excessive notifications create digital noise that defeats the purpose of systematic tracking. Calendar integration transforms abstract commitments into concrete time blocks. Schedule your accountability check-ins directly into shared calendars with automatic reminders set for 24 hours and 15 minutes before each meeting. This dual reminder system addresses both planning needs and immediate preparation. Include meeting agendas and calendar descriptions, specific questions to address, metrics to review, challenges requiring input. Progress tracking applications serve as neutral witnesses to your patterns. Habitica gamifies daily commitments through reward systems. Strides focuses on streak maintenance and visual progress charts. Coach.me combines personal tracking with optional community accountability. The specific platform matters less than consistent usage. Select one tool, commit to 30 days of daily logging, then evaluate whether it genuinely strengthens your follow-through or simply adds administrative burden. Communication platforms like Slack or dedicated Discord servers create persistent spaces for accountability partnerships. Establish specific channels for different purposes: daily check-ins, milestone celebrations, obstacle troubleshooting. This compartmentalization prevents accountability from bleeding into casual conversation while maintaining accessibility when support is needed. Technology introduces new failure points, though. Apps require intentional maintenance, reviewing settings quarterly, archiving completed projects, adjusting notification preferences as circumstances change. When technological systems feel burdensome rather than supportive, they become sophisticated avoidance mechanisms. Begin with one integrated tool pairing, a shared task manager plus scheduled calendar events. Master this foundation before adding complexity. Technology should make accountability easier to maintain, not impressive to describe. Adaptive processes, evolving with your challenges. Iterative planning techniques. The weekly review ritual anchors adaptive productivity in lived experience. Schedule 90 minutes every Sunday evening or Friday afternoon. Whatever endpoint lets you assess honestly before the week dissolves into memory. Open a blank document and answer 5 questions without editing or softening the truth. Which planned tasks did you complete? Which did you avoid? What unexpected obstacles emerged? What worked better than expected? What needs to change next week? This isn't journaling, you're mining data. After 3 consecutive weeks, patterns surface that daily tracking misses entirely. Perhaps Tuesday afternoons consistently derail because that's when energy crashes. Or maybe tasks labeled quick win actually trigger avoidance because they're cognitively demanding despite brevity. Through consistent weekly reviews, many professionals discover their unique productivity rhythms, identifying peak performance hours when complex tasks are best tackled, or noticing patterns of procrastination linked to specific types of work. Some individuals realize they consistently achieve deep focus on cognitively demanding tasks before 10 a.m., an insight that can transform their entire planning approach. Barker, 2020. Create decision triggers for the 3 most common disruptions your reviews reveal. If overwhelm appears repeatedly, your trigger becomes, when a task feels too large to start, I will extract one 5-minute component and schedule only that. If perfectionism dominates, try. When I notice myself researching instead of drafting, I will set a timer for 12 minutes of imperfect output. Write these on an index card and photograph it. Keep the image accessible on your phone because You won't remember protocols when stress floods your system. Monthly calibration goes deeper. Block 3 hours at month's end to evaluate whether your system itself still serves your actual life. Review your weekly review notes as a data set. Are the same obstacles appearing without resolution? Has your energy pattern shifted with season or workload? Are you maintaining structures that once helped but now create friction? Many professionals found that elaborate morning routines designed for remote work became unsustainable and a source of stress after returning to an office commute, necessitating a complete overhaul to align with their current reality rather than past successes. Test one experimental change each month. One variable shift executed consistently for 30 days, then evaluated with the same rigor you'd apply to a team pilot program. Try time blocking if you've relied on task lists, or switch your accountability check-ins from weekly to twice weekly. Document the hypothesis, track the results, and assess whether the data justifies permanent integration. Failed experiments aren't setbacks. They're how you discover what your particular brain needs, which differs substantially from generic productivity advice. Your system should feel lighter every quarter, not heavier. If you're adding complexity faster than you're removing friction, you've mistaken sophistication for effectiveness. Feedback loops for growth. Feedback loops don't guarantee success. They guarantee learning, which over time becomes the same thing. You've built the infrastructure to notice when systems drift, when energy patterns shift, when what worked in March stops working in October. That capacity for recognition, not the perfection of any single productivity method, determines whether you're still making progress 2 years from now or cycling through your fifth supposedly revolutionary approach. The distinction matters because procrastination evolves with you. As you resolve one trigger, others surface with different characteristics requiring different interventions. The overwhelm that responded beautifully to microtasks might give way to perfectionism that needs bounded drafting sessions, which might eventually yield to energy depletion requiring complete schedule restructuring. Your system must adapt not because you failed the original design, but because you changed through using it. Return to the weekly and monthly review protocols when motivation wanes. Resistance to reviewing often signals the exact moment reviews become most valuable, when patterns have shifted enough to create friction but haven't yet crystallized into conscious awareness. The discomfort you feel opening that blank document isn't about the 10 minutes required. It's about confronting evidence that your current approach needs adjustment. That confrontation, however uncomfortable, prevents months of diminishing returns. Celebrate closed loops, not just completed tasks. When your weekly review reveals that adjusting your most demanding tasks to align with your natural energy peaks, a strategy consistent with chronotype research has significantly reduced previously unproductive periods, that's a solved variable. One fewer obstacle draining energy indefinitely. When monthly calibration shows that implementing regular accountability check-ins, a method supported by findings from a 2015 Dominican University of California study, where participants who sent weekly progress reports to a friend achieved significantly more of their goals, has reduced avoidance patterns and increased completion rates. You've earned genuine system improvement through methodical testing rather than hopeful guessing. Matthews, 2015. These incremental optimizations compound over quarters and years into productivity transformations that feel effortless because they're aligned with your actual psychology rather than imposed against it. Some weeks you'll complete the review and discover nothing needs changing. Your system humming along, obstacles minimal, progress steady. Those weeks prove the infrastructure works. What comes next requires looking beyond individual systems toward the interconnected reality of sustainable productivity. You've built feedback mechanisms that keep your approaches aligned with your evolving challenges, but lasting change demands more than adaptive systems. It requires understanding how multiple strategies layer together, how accountability partnerships interact with emotional regulation techniques, how microtasks support time blocking, which enables better energy management. The next chapter examines integration, not as additive complexity, but as strategic simplification where fewer, better chosen interventions create disproportionate results. You're moving from building components to architecting a complete approach that feels less like management and more like momentum. Your feedback loops ensure that architecture remains responsive rather than rigid, evolving alongside the life it's designed to serve.